Hey everybody, this is Chris, your DM for Season 5, and this is the official last episode for Season 5, the wrap-up episode. We actually got together in person to do this, so it was one of the rare in-person recordings that we had all around the table. And we sat around and talked about our favorite moments from the season, which you're about to hear. But we are going to be talking spoilers, so if you're listening to this and you haven't finished Season 5, please finish the season and then come back and listen to this. And you can get some questions answered. We address some things that maybe didn't happen and some other things that could have happened, but it's a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed the season. I look forward to Season 6. And don't forget to go out and make life an adventure. Chur, chur, chur. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Knights of the Roll Table, the wrap-up episode. Woo! Yay!
Wow.
This is the Season 5 wrap-up episode, and that's my kids.
Yay! They're around. Children.
They're adorable.
So you might hear some children in the background. We are together in the same room. I think we didn't have one episode this season that was actually in the same room, right?
I don't think so, no.
It was just actually
Battle Royale we did.
the Battle Royale. Yeah,
Oh,
that was
yeah.
during quarantine, but that was about it. So yeah, this is the post Season 5 wrap up, and Zach is going to kind of moderate this, so I don't have to so I can look up notes if I need to for DM purposes. But yeah, we'll just kind of keep it casual, and you've got some things.
Absolutely. Round of applause for Chris, everybody.
Yay. Wow.
Yes.
What a
Amazing.
season.
I think we want to take an opportunity to ask the DM behind the scenes kind of questions. So we should think about anything we want to pick Chris's brain on, and we can talk about kind of what's up in the future. But I think helping us all do that. Important to this discussion, I think, is we are recorded way ahead of time. So Chris knows what just happened probably more clearly than any of us did, because it was definitely one of those seasons where, like, we as players, I feel like we're all like, what is going on? What's happening now? There's definitely clues here. And like, we've recorded the whole season and got to the ending. But in terms of like picking up the clues he was laying along the way, I feel like there's going to be a lot of moments for us, the players, being like, oh yeah, you did mention that in that episode. So maybe we can kind of go back and do kind of like a recap of the outline of the season. And then we'll go back and talk about things that we enjoyed, or maybe just along the way. So it started, I'm going to go to Chris a lot for this, but it started with Melbin and Theo introduced as
two
new
buds.
characters.
Yes.
And let's talk about that a little bit.
So this was a little bit different in the sense that, you know, we've previously started with new characters coming in to meet with existing characters, but I wanted to give these new characters just some time on their own to establish themselves, to kind of learn more about them. The first episode was great, just having some time, like you did a whole like cheese shopping episode and you got to meet some people that you used to work with and just kind of get the personality. So it was 2 whole episodes pretty much of just getting to know Melbin and Theo, which was great before we brought in the rest. So I think that was just kind of a little bit different, just pacing wise.
It was fun.
It was great because we knew we had to know each other, but to like be able to do some bits and do some scenes and like kind of establish a rapport made it make more sense that we hopefully felt like we already knew each other as characters in meeting the rest of the crew.
I liked the dynamic that you and I ended up with, as especially early on in the season as we were kind of establishing that. Don't call me master.
Yeah.
And they were already knights. Like, so we just kind of skipped over the whole, like, oh, do you have to prove yourself? You know, it's like this is just establishing a little bit further into our overall story that these 2 characters, you know, there are characters out there that have been initiated that we haven't met yet. And so these are like 2 characters that have a backstory. They've gone through similar things. They've lost friends along the way or mentors. And so we kind of, it makes sense kind of where they are in the overall story.
And nice for us to have a little bit of like story detail that you guys didn't have in terms of like what was going on with Avaros and in the city ahead of time. That way, as we all figured it out, it was like, oh no, we did that. Remember? And there was something about that. So it gave us something else, some other knowledge that you didn't have. So that was cool.
I also liked seeing the betrayal. I don't remember what we ended up calling that, the event, from other characters besides the characters that we'd seen, and actually getting to like, oh, that's what it would have looked like.
Theo.
Oh, but Master Theo, is it ready for consumption by others?
It's a little
Is this
early.
your manservant?
Melbin.
No, I am his apprentice. I study under Master Theo.
Oh,
No, you don't.
right.
We're not. I'm not your teacher. I'm not teaching anything. There's no teaching happening.
And yet
We're
I learned so
companioning.
much. I learned so much
We,
just from
we are
watching
going
you.
together on the same mission.
Yeah, that's fun. Speaking of the city, we started off in Valentrell, which is the capital of Volcara. Sort of, we started and ended there, and I got to. I did this a little bit in season 2, but we didn't spend a whole lot of time in Falcon Reach. But this was kind of, I like the idea of starting with a city that was non-magical, like strictly non-magic and very religious based, without going too much into the religion. And it was sort of like a D&D Vatican City kind of thing, ruled by some sort of ruling religion. But I also had fun just making the map.
Looking at the map of Valentrell that he has up for us right now gives me a flashbacks to the map of Emberbrook, which was the first intricate map of a city Chris ever showed to us. And we all like studied it and figured it out and learned the different areas.
And then burned it all down.
And by the end of the first episode, or maybe the second episode as was published, but that was probably the first session, it was gone. I feel like that did some damage to my like attention span to maps, because I'm like, don't get invested in this.
No.
It might be all gone.
On a long enough timeline, all cities burn.
Yeah.
Although this one didn't.
That's because
Still there.
Celius
On
wasn't
a
yet.
long
Yeah.
enough timeline.
Yeah, it's true.
All cities.
I mean, there is a Tarask living underneath, so
Yes.
just give it some. Oh no.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to this season,
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Spoilers
yeah.
ahead and behind.
If you haven't listened to the season, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Episode.
go away.
This is specifically spoilers. Let them fly. All right, so Theo and Melbin explored the town a little bit, and then it's an interesting combination of both starting a campaign with like walking around, shopping, getting to know characters, and also starting a campaign with action. Because when we met our other characters, we were in the midst of like, okay, you've got a bag over your head, you've been tortured, you've been captured, go. So let's talk about that moment a little bit.
Any season.
Yeah. And I like the idea of taking our time just to have that. Like, y'all didn't have combat until I think well into the second, or towards the very end of the first recording is when we stopped, and there wasn't even combat. And combat started the second recording, which was the third episode, which is where y'all came in, already captured, in this underground temple dungeon sort of sacrifice room. How did you all feel being thrown into that? Because I don't think I think I told you this is what happened. This is kind of like where I see y'all be. But how did you feel being just like, okay, we're starting in chains?
Thinking back.
Probably more comfortable with it than I should have been. I think maybe there's some stuff to unpack there with how easily adapted to that I felt.
Like, this makes sense.
I go,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm not sure how we got here, but it makes sense.
this is nice.
I did like the little interplay of Yenni and Diedre trying to figure out chain mechanics, and like how like one chain got distracted, but then you tried to like leap up and then it didn't quite work and smacked into the wall, and it's just all this like.
Didn't one of you kick the other in the face? I
Yep.
think.
Yeah.
Yep, you sure did. Yeah, that was quite the Three Stooges routine. Just two Stooges this time, I guess.
We had fun.
We did, but it was in the middle of a fight, so maybe having fun should have been the priority.
Yeah, it was.
But we got it. We got it eventually. We got out of there eventually.
Yeah, I don't recall being terribly effective in that particular brawl.
It was definitely a Theo Melvin joint, and we just sort of
Working on these chains.
Thanks for coming out, guys. Yeah.
I broke that one. 4 more to go. Keep it going.
Yeah.
But they did eventually get out. We had an introduction of some maybe demons, maybe undead, maybe bad guys. Turned out to be, we learned more about minions of Avaros, basically. That's definitely, this is one of many moments where, like, now, having seen the season, I was like, okay, that was the introduction of Avaros, and those were those guys, and we fought them later. Yeah. But at the moment, it was just like, these guys sound bad. This seems really interesting. Let's keep going.
So there was an undead shadow orc, and several just, soldiers, like foot soldier type people that were guards. And then there was the shadow priest that
escaped,
came back later, much later in Fight Y'all and Glorn. But he was basically like one of the people, kind of lieutenants in charge of like sacrificing people and sending them to where Narsendrel said, like, send them to the Shadowfell and sacrifice the souls of these people, all these criminals and people that are poor and basically like all the bad things that he's like, I'm going to get rid of all this, but they were being sacrificed.
I had almost forgotten about that entire sect of people. I think we started recording this in like July of last year. So that part, that didn't hurt the forgetting, but I liked that they were there, they were established, so that when they did come back, it was like, oh yeah, it wasn't just some random baddie out of the blue.
From there, we encountered Shape Changer guy, and we made our way into
Gustavo.
Well, they were already interacting with Gustavo a little bit, right? And so pretty quickly, Gustavo took us to the Underdark from there, right?
Gustavo was like a right-hand person for Drake Bloodmoon, sort of the face. The Bosley of Drake Bloodmoon's Charlie is what I...
Does that make us the angels?
Yes, you are all the angels. You are the Underdark angels or whatever. So yeah, Gustavo was sort of the point person because Drake Bloodmoon, the idea was no one would see him. And so he met you two, gave you the mission, sort of prove your worth, and he had given y'all a mission to prove your worth. And you did in one way or another, but then there was this, all the knights are being hunted. Everybody's looking for knights to eliminate in the city from Narsendrel, which you find out later. And then so he was like, I know a safe place, let's go in the Underdark. And he took y'all down there. There was some shenanigans in the Underdark, getting to the dwarf sort of underground city, where you got your first message. You got your two message stones. One from Drake Bloodmoon, which was recorded by Zach's dad. If you've listened to the one shot of the Demon Spire, the Demon Spine prison, Zach's dad plays Eric Darkharbor, who has taken the moniker of Drake Bloodmoon as a alias.
Daddy Darkharbor?
And he mentions Valentrell and like being
Daddy D.
being a person.
Is it sort of like I think, did we establish that it was like a Dread Pirate Roberts type thing where that name kind of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Exact. That's exactly it. And there's a whole other, there's whole other things that we kind of worked out with that dynamic and stuff like that. If it had gone into a different, if y'all like let's find him and let's go after him and that sort of thing, like I had a whole other thing planned. So
Just ready to throw out all your notes.
yeah, I mean, I had a couple different like paths, and I was sort of like, all the stuff with the world was like, well, that's one possibility. So, but it could have been very much Valentrell centric.
But we made our way to Glorn. Which I feel like the trek to Glorn was very memorable to me. The like mists of madness and like dealing with this and how dangerous it could get was like impactful for me. And our first kind of like test of a group of like functioning together and getting along. What are people's memories of that?
I felt like I very visually saw that whole journey. Like, I don't know, it was very well described.
I have a map of the Underdark too.
Lots of fog and purple.
That's what I remember.
Kind of like if you've ever been to a Pink Floyd like laser light show.
Mm-hmm. I remember your character and my character, Jen, fighting about which way to go. You're like, no, we should just go. And I'm like, let's be safe. No, we're just going to go straight through the fog.
Efficiency.
Yeah, it was great.
So tell us
Nothing
we
of
chose
note.
correctly.
Everything was fine.
Yeah, I mean, either one would have been fine. I had a whole like dark gnome sort of like what you got? What are you gonna give me to get by? Like that was just like stuff, and I had Drow that maybe could have run into you if you'd passed stuff, and then Crimson Cliffs was gonna be like a bunch of beasties, and maybe the Mind Flayers as well. But you ran into a Mind Flayer. First of all, you ran into Quagoths, which are like these albino gorilla sort of people, like and there was like a halfling, like a dark halfling that was riding one, and they ran into, it was a turf war between them and this Mind Flayer gang riding a bunch of carrion crawlers.
Awesome.
Wearing leather jackets.
Which is gross.
Underdark
Which we
stuff.
got those leather jackets.
And you got those. And
Yeah.
much later you
Well
figured out
earned.
what they did.
Yeah, that combat encounter was nuts because the first one I could at least go like, okay, we were chained up. We were kind of like handicapped, so we couldn't bring our full forces to bear. And then this combat encounter happened, and I just remember it taking so long because we fought about 12 different things the whole time, and it was like, oh lord, this is never going to end. And this is literally like one of the first combat encounters of the season. This is going to be a nuts season for combat encounters. It turned out to be nuts for many reasons, not just the combat encounters. But I remember feeling in that first combat encounter when the Mind Flayer showed up specifically that it's like, oh, he's not going to take it easy on us. This is really going to.
It's not like any of us were gonna die.
Not ridiculous. I feel like the intention of that battle was like, oh, they're going to fight each other and the characters will be in the middle of it. But we just ended up like taking out one side
We'll fight
and then like,
everybody.
oh, we're going to fight these guys now. All right.
Oh boy, we'll fight.
Hey, you and I talked our way through a lot of stuff before we met them.
Yeah. You know,
So-
we were a very peaceful party before.
We were for sure the violent ones.
Oh yes.
What I think what's interesting about this particular party dynamic was it was very melee heavy, aside from Jeff doing a lot of druidy casty things
To make
And-
melee characters.
and even Melbin had power, like spell ability, but you mostly did smashing and slicing.
Well, and all his spells were like required touch or within
Yeah.
five. Like none of them had range.
Yeah. There was not a lot of range. I mean, there was some range. That's why I gave you, with the blood axe. Right. Yeah. With Carlos, I was like, okay, we're gonna give you this cool thing because, and what I did as a DM also before the season that I think was really fun is I individually reached out to all of you and said like, what do you want? Like, not in a bad, like, what are you looking for this season? So like Carlos said, like, I want to find a cool axe, and I have, parents somewhere, it'd be fun to find out a little bit more backstory. And Zach's, I said like, who's somebody important to each one of you? And so we met Zach's like war buddy. Jen casually mentioned she was engaged once, and she had people that she trusted, this, I forget the name of the lady something or other.
It was like Jacoby.
The Lady Jacoby, which we got to use in the in Kesserim when Sozeb did the whole like mind trickery. That brought a couple of those in. But yeah, and then we met your fiance later.
Right.
Which was a big like, oh,
Xavian.
And then with Matt's character, there was I think it was helpful because you were from Valentrell, so having you like be part of the guard was really nice. It was kind of a way of touching to the city, and like you had people that you knew there, acquaintances, and with yours it was not so much people you knew, but it was that quest of finding what Rebecca's purpose is and like what. And when that was challenging for me because I was like, how do I make a sheep super important?
Oh yeah.
But what I did with that was like, I'm gonna layer in. First, you got to find the person that can do it, which is one of these people who's an expert in like local, animal husbandry and whatnot, and that would tell you that it's a rare strain. And it's very powerful in high concentrations.
Was Rebecca based on the concept of steel wool? Because I feel like that was always the joke that was just like sitting there, that she was steel wool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The easiest, dumbest joke is
We never
exactly
really
what I
like
went
landed
for.
on it.
Yeah. Of course it was.
But magic steel.
Why is this a show? Why is this
I think this is a good time, I think, to take a break off of those. Like, we all kind of like shared some background and characters from our backgrounds that we could encounter. So maybe it's a good time to kind of talk about each character from the player's perspective on kind of like how you feel about your character's particular arc in this season and kind of where you ended up. Who'd like to start?
I'll start, I guess.
Yeah. Let's talk about Melbin.
So
Melbin Gilrod.
Melvin Gilrod.
Yes, the most annoying voice I've done so far. I think we talked about this in his like backstory episode, but I had never played a paladin before. I really don't ever play humans either. That's just like not neither of those things. So I was like, all right, let's try a different thing. He was more annoying than I intended him to be, but I liked where that went over time. In particular, his death and resurrection, I think mellowed him out a little bit, which was fun. And it was nice getting to play a character that just got to absorb damage. Just like, oh, you can hit me. Because usually I end up playing very squishy characters that are like, oh, I got to go hide again. All right. So that was really fun. But yeah, I liked, it started off with him sort of wanting to follow Theo and see, he idolized you and looked at you as like kind of a mentor. And by the end, well, especially if that proposal had gone through, it was, no, go off on your own. And he was like, all right, I'm going to go find out who I am on my own. And I liked that arc with him.
I'll concur with that. Yeah, I think that was a fun thing also to have two new characters and then to see how they work together. I think at least for Theo, it was a lot of like discovery. I didn't think I had very much planned out, which is shocking coming from me. But I don't think I had a real direction of like, this character really is this way or has this ethos or this pathos. It was just, here's a few starting ideas. And what does that mean that this person is like that? Here's their situation. And what does that mean that they're like? And so it was fun for me to kind of discover that and like kind of find things to do. Obviously, as soon as like I that was like, oh, here's an NPC. It was like, here's something we can do.
I love her.
I'm going to decide.
I do think we should address one thing, a sort of stigma, if you will, with a druid that is specifically a conjurer, like a summoner.
Yes.
Which there's a lot of people, DMs, that'll be like, no summoning. Like they're just like, please limit it to. But that was your thing. That was like that was your move. So we had a conversation of like, okay, how does this work? And like beforehand of like, I'm going to let you have like 2 very powerful things, or you can have like 4 or 8, and just having a really clear, like, here's
Something
a limit.
Small. That
here's a
do
limited
a lot of damage, like pixies.
Here's a now in the DM's guide and in the whole thing with like summoning spells and whatnot, it says the DM can choose the thing, but instead of doing that every single time, we worked out like, here's a small list of like, here's what you can do, and that I think that was easier for you, just to be like, okay, here's things I can choose from. It was easier for me because it'd be like, all right, yes, just go at the same time initiative wise.
Yeah, we certainly, it can be a real bear to manage that type of stuff, but I think we found a way where it was like, you knew I was gonna, that was like move 1 was like first summon the thing, then another round to like get them keyed up and ready to go.
Right.
And then for you to like assess on the battlefield, how's that going to work? And then, play it out from there.
And we'll come back to that. I want to get all the other characters, but there was a couple times where those summoned beings were clutch.
Now, was that like a homebrewed subclass? I really only ever, when I play Druid, I almost always play Circle of the Moon.
Circle of the Shepherd.
Yeah.
So
it's not in the standard rule book.
I think
but it is.
It might have been
content?
Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah.
So it was maybe like test it out. But then we did take some stuff from, I think, some homebrew for, instead of wild shape, you basically had the ability of, I forget.
Like summon a companion animal.
Yeah, it was like
that's what it was.
It was summoning a companion instead of doing wild shape. So that's why we had a lot of like, I'm gonna bring in almost like a familiar or a companion animal, but then you could also do these other things. So it just made Theo incredibly powerful with just like extra action economy.
Summon an elk and then another elk, and then another elk, and then another elk. I will summon 8 elks, which are going to start running around and charging around and braying and ramming all of the different creatures that are around.
You know,
Okay, you had to do it.
Yep. Had you know, if it didn't go off right, it wasn't totally overpowered. There was still like, well, I don't have very much HP. I don't have very much armor, so like I have to cast this.
But I got 8 moose.
But I got my 8 moose, baby. They coming out.
Okay. Yenni.
Yenni did a lot of growing this season. She grew older. Like 10 years to be
For
exact.
10 years, and that's how you ended, with 10 years older, with a little bit of gray.
She's probably got a cool little gray streak now. And she grew very attached to her blood axe. Her new favorite. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, he likes you too.
Going back to that first encounter with the mind flayers, I think before they showed up, I think I cleaved that dark halfling in half almost with that blood axe, which was quite the final moment of that battle. And Yenni also grew, I guess, closer to Iggy and Diedre, and I feel like they are now sort of in the previous season. It was implied because they're all part of the same party and sort of like participating with each other that like they're a group, but now they very much feel like they are a unit in a way that maybe wasn't true at the very beginning of the season. I know Diedre and Yenni sort of were having the beginning of a like close relationship, but like truly it's a 3-person unit now that I think if they were to return would return as a triad and not necessarily individually, I think. Well,
Whoa.
And we met your parents, your real birth parents.
That was a pretty interesting moment. I don't know if we maybe want to save that for like favorite moments.
Sure.
I have some stuff to say about that, but it probably will go on at length. So I want to give you some space to talk about
save
their
that.
stuff first.
Yeah. What about Igneous?
Let me go back for a minute because I got on D&D Beyond, did the research. If you want to be Circle of the Shepherd, that's in Xanathar's guide. But I think you guys did a little bit of homebrewing on top of that, I think. My impression was Jeff didn't really want to be the one fighting, so I was going to like fight through my beast, basically, was kind of like how I read that. And that seemed like a really cool take. And some like clear choices. Without me knowing exactly what you would discuss, I could tell like they had a clear collaboration to make this really work as a character the way we want it to without being like overbalanced. There was a clear like, well, I won't do this, so I'll do this, and that seemed like a really cool.
Yeah, I think you summoned Shillelagh once. No, you summoned Shillelagh a lot, but you used it once.
Yeah.
It was just
One
like,
time.
okay, and everything else. Yeah, and like all of the defensive and like the healing and stuff like that. But yeah, what about Igneous?
Yeah, so Igneous, you know, I think I mentioned in season 4 and creating Igneous and that whole party was kind of we kind of had the assumption that like these are backup characters just in case, or maybe they're one-shot characters, and not necessarily that we've been playing them as like a full player character for half of the season. So you know, it was definitely like figuring out what personality this just like kind of fun monk. The concept was more like I want to play a monk, that'll be fun. And so figuring out his personality and his backstory was definitely happening during season 4. And season 5 definitely had a lot more opportunity to kind of like get into what this is, what he's going through, what he experiences, and really the theme of like he's lonely, he doesn't fit in. He's literally from another plane of existence, not even another world. He's from somewhere else. And there's
with a bad rap.
Yeah, with a bad rap. Not
bad
everybody.
place.
There was a lot of like angles where he had to kind of explain, like, "Oh yeah, I was on the other side of that fight." And like, you know me, XX Bloody Heart. Nice to meet you. Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that battle. We can talk about it later. Kinds of things, but you know, a couple moments like the rooms that existed in Glorn and where would your room be was an interesting moment of like, man, I don't think he has one.
Igneous, where are you staying?
So I think like Igneous is like kind of stunned by this like question and notion and has never really like let himself ponder where he would want to be and just kind of like stares at it and eventually like tries it and ends up with like the last place that was like his area, which is the like army barracks in the fire. Even in that triad that we were talking about, there's definitely that sense of like Diedre and Yenni are close and he's there and they like him, but they just don't have the same like emotional connection with him, it felt like. And so there's lots of like kind of nice moments to explore. He's looking for something. And even at the end of the season, I think it came down to like he could stay in Glorn. There was kind of that question of where do you go from there? And he could stay there and this could be kind of a home. And these people seem nice, but this doesn't feel right. There's something else out there for him. It was all nice and fun to explore, and I think there was a lot of interesting ways that we looked at it, including meeting Flint and talking to Flint and exploring that piece of his life a little bit. I think there was a lot of great moments that I enjoyed.
How about Diedre, Jen?
It's funny. I feel like Zach hit the nail on the head that, like, yeah, when the concept of this character was a little more two-dimensional than the pages and pages of backstory that I'm typically provided for Chris Daly in the past. So, like, I think a lot of it was kind of like addressing what was that history and why has she left it behind, and kind of, we did revisit. We had, people from her past that came up, and I think just kind of solidifying not only like why she left, but like that I am staying gone, basically, and that choosing. And I think like we didn't explore it quite as much as I would have liked, but I feel like the kinship that she has with Yenni is something that like felt very much like an underlying motivating factor, for me at least. And she actually like there were some romantic passes kind of made her way early on that it was like, no, that's not what I'm here for. Like, and like, I think for her, it was more just like coming into herself. And like, I was, now there's a lot that she can do. That's very cool. But I think also just like really solidifying like, oh, but I'm part of a group as well. And trying to prioritize that, as something, that she's choosing to do as well.
Yeah. I liked Diedre opening up a couple times. I was throwing a few challenges out there, like when you had to answer a question or something like that, and you're just like, well, because it's very Diedre. It's not necessarily you, know. And I know you like, or somebody like Maya, who had no problem,
Oh yeah.
doing something like that. But then it was kind of like you playing an introvert,
Yeah.
But having that is like a good challenge, and then putting characters, NPCs or villains up, against you, and just like, let's just move it along,
Yeah.
But I liked stuff like that.
I have a question.
Yes.
Who was the leader of our group?
I feel like Iggy.
I thought it was a democracy.
Everybody
It
evenly.
was a bit of a commune.
Yeah.
We were a bunch of fellow travelers, so to speak.
I didn't vote. I didn't vote for any duke, any king.
Why do you ask that?
I don't know. I just reflecting back, I think in most cases, somebody who's a human paladin with like a real righteous path would be the first person kind of, saying, addressing every NPC, starting every bit of it. And I think you did that sometimes, but I don't. Yeah, I think like Igneous did that sometimes. I think we kind of shared that in different ways that it wasn't super obvious.
I think Melbin was the spokesperson, like the face man, for the group. But Igneous was like the moral compass.
Yeah, I would agree with
I think
that. And
Igneous was moral compass, and then I stepped in when I was like, let's move this along.
Yeah.
and that's
you were
actually
sort of the
now.
stage manager. Yenni was the tank, and Theo was the den mother of like, okay.
and being sort of that like face character is very. I don't play that character ever. That's not me. I had to. I'm like, I guess Melbin would probably actually step forward and speak here instead of just sitting back, which is my.
Isn't that one of the most wonderful
inclination.
things about D&D, though?
Yeah, you got to play an introvert, and I got to play an extrovert.
Introvert's a strong word, but a little more emotionally reserved
Yeah.
than I'm typically.
But yeah, it is really interesting, and like having to say like what would my character do is always when used correctly, because I've seen people abuse that, is when the most fun moments of D&D happen for me.
I think a little bit of Igneous' leadership qualities were like bleeding through. There was moments where like, okay, there's something to figure out here, and like us as players, nobody was really like jumping in to be like, I'll explore that, and then it was more Zach the person's like sense of like somebody's got to talk, so like I'll have Igneous do it, and so like through that, I think Igneous took on my my sense of like, let's move along.
But I also
kind
I
of
think
quality.
that was a character choice, like because I as you know, I tend to, as a player, insert myself into a lot of situations, and I was trying really hard because I was like, Diedre would not do that at all. So like I really did try to pull back this season and just be like, I am there to be an efficient tool in XYZ situations, but I am not the face of this party.
There was not really, I don't think any of our characters were necessarily kind of like super strongly driven towards got to achieve this thing right now. It wasn't very like, what's everybody else gonna do? Like, how do we?
It's just vibes.
How do we move
Just
along
vibes
together,
on this
y'all?
campaign.
Well, I think though
our
that comes
most
back
vibed
and that
campaign
supports
yet.
like Melbin and Iggy, I think, had the clearest definition of like, this is right, this is wrong, and this is what needs to get done. And I think that's why it kind of fell on you guys more than anybody, is just because of that choice. Like,
Well, let's jump back into the little season recap. So we got to Glorn, which ended up being very much the base of operations thing, and it met a lot of very awesome characters. The trio of sorcerers there, and our
Boone.
Boone.
Boone is like my
awesome
favorite
character, awesome
NPC,
voice.
I think.
I love Boone.
Hi guys. You want a boon?
It's the voice was based on John Heater.
So great, so memorable. I think probably the most memorable character for me of the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very distinct. You could totally picture him all the time. The boons that Boone gave was very fun. The couple
He
of
was a
times we did
treat.
that.
A real treat.
Yeah.
That was fun because I almost always didn't want to take them because I didn't want to slow down the like actual getting out the door and going to do stuff. But like me, Matt, wanted very much to see what that was going to be every time. Like, no, let's all get boons so that something.
And they
will
were
happen.
good. They were
Yeah.
fun.
I was just listening to the episode where I got an extra foot.
Yes.
That wasn't the original thing, but we like
Tiny
improvised it into one little tiny extra foot to
I am
take
a
an
little-
extra step.
Does
I feel
one.
like we never really got to see the full fallout from Victor von Schnell.
Yeah, we got slaughtered. It seems fine. Maybe that's what gave them away. Maybe they're all hidden, but they couldn't resist the urge to polka.
The episode that we just released, where you met Narsendrell, and there's the whole conversation where you're kind of relaying information about, where did you go and who did you meet, and then somebody mentioned, Victor von Schnell, he's then Cold Guard, and I said, and Narsendrell nods to one of his lieutenants, and then they walk off, and that was the moment where he basically like, go kill those people.
Oh wow.
Oh, dang.
Which y'all did. Like, you kind of gave him the information for.
That was
Just
a powerful moment.
just a
where we
little-
definitely came out of that going like, I feel like, yeah, that was there's going to be problems coming out of that interaction, but Melbin's fine.
Yeah. Oh.
That was really interesting because obviously I trust you, Chris, right? But in character, you were clearly lying to us, and where do we balance on that? Trying to figure out like how much of this is the character lying, how much is the character? No, he's being authentic, but he kind of comes across shady. How much of this is like Chris is like, no, I need you guys to know this information so you can move on. Trying to figure that out, but then just filter it all back through my character. Like Melbin didn't know anything because he was like totally out of it in that situation.
Well, and knowing that, like, we're giving up information, like, I think in that situation, Diedre knew, like, we shouldn't be telling this guy anything, but the alternative was unacceptable. So it's kind of like, all right, well, the ends have to justify the means.
So, from Glorn, we meet delightful characters and eventually get into kind of like what I feel like this is a central structure of the season, which I definitely loved, the notion of like...
It's an adventure hub.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
I had read something fairly close to when we started recording, which was this is a fun mechanic that you can give your players of like give them a place that either teleports or like maybe it's gateways to places or whatever. And I just like that idea of like one, I wanted to establish more of the world of the realms, and instead of like. And how do we do that without by just eliminating travel time, like not having airships and not having, pirate stuff, and like that would take like much longer to get around the different sections of the world.
Fast travel.
Yeah, exactly. Just do.
You've leveled up to a certain point that you've unlocked.
Yeah, I mean, this is you guys we're at level 9, level 10, so I mean it's you've gained. Notoriety to the point where it's like, okay, these are higher level knights so that they have the ability and this particular location that's very guarded and unique to the knights is like, okay, we need you to go around to different parts of the world, which other knights have clearly done. And some of which we've already met. So I liked that idea of just like, okay, well, we're going to go to all these different places and really explore, some different places that we haven't seen. And meet some old friends and new friends along the way.
That was a really fun idea. I enjoyed playing in that world.
And it also forced me not to plan, which I'm guilty of doing a lot, especially with like season 2. But like this season, I was like, okay, I'm going to really just let y'all decide. And I'm going to have all the possibilities and we'll see what happens, which is from a planning perspective is very nerve wracking. But but from a DM side on the back end, for those that were listening, what I did was I kind of sent everybody notes in the Discord. I was like, all right, so next episode, y'all have a decision of where you want to go and maybe let me know ahead of time so I can plan for it just a little bit. But not having like, this is where we're going, which was great. So
especially since you had like guest stars in several of the episodes, you had to know like, okay, we're going to go there. I need to go get David Armstrong or whatever.
Yeah.
Had you planned on who was going to be in which place, or was it like, well, I've got David Armstrong this week, so it looks like he's going to be.
Yeah. How did that work? How did lining up guest stars? I'm curious about that.
It was a little tricky because luckily since we were a little bit ahead of time, that definitely helped. And so like with David, I was like, I was either going to have him play Sozeb if you went to Heaven's Breath. I was like, you're either going to be an evil CEO of a corporation, you might be an Aarakocra, or like I actually let David kind of come up with the character, and he was like, I'm going to be an Aarakocra monk.
I'm going to be a Aarakocra monk.
Yeah,
I'm actually mad that we didn't go and have him be Sozeb now. That would have been amazing.
He could have double timed it. Like I would have loved to see both.
I mean, so I had a couple different possibilities of just
David,
like...
I'm going to need you for season 6.
But yeah, I mean, I think we knew that was going to happen. And then like a couple weeks went by and I was like, I just said, hey, can you do this date? And then he was like, yeah. So it was fun. Just, I love as a DM having moments where guests come in and it's a surprise. And for all of these, we were able to have people that we've as players have seen them before and they're our friends. And,
it was so fun.
So having David Armstrong, who, if you haven't listened to the Battle Royale, he's fantastic, and David's a great player and
in person,
just
and
an
DM in person, yeah, and lives in New York, so we had to kind of like play with the time zone thing. And I also liked the idea, and I told him, I was like, so Shimmercross has a particular wild magic kind of pocket, pockets of wild magic where weird things can happen whenever you cast a spell. Anytime somebody casts a spell, there will be a particular, you will roll on the wild magic table. And what happened to you enough times as it happened, even though you're a monk, like you just did it one time and it was like, you have amnesia and you can't remember anything. You lost your memory for several days. And it was funny when you guys went there and you're like, hold on a second, let me conjure a bird. Wild magic. Like, wait, hold on, let me conjure an eagle. Let me see if that happens. Wild magic. You're just like, how many
it's
times
either birds or magic? How do we narrow this down?
And
More
eventually,
experiments are necessary.
eventually, David's character Cully was just like, "Do y'all need help? Like, what's going on with all this stuff?" But that led to the Riddle Temple and like having Diedre having a nice moment of unlocking several doors, which I was like, I want to give the rogue a chance to do that, and all of the riddles where Theo turned into stone, and just like fighting. So some when y'all fought the trees and everything, that was kind of my first hint of these are creatures from the Fae. This is a Fae character. These are Fae inspired creatures, which ultimately point to the sort of what do you call it? Sponsor villain, like the person that's in charge of all these things, the patron. Not necessarily Narsendrell, but the person that's behind the Platinum Syndicate. Because it's a very ancient area of some place that is containing an item, the Luminite, which kind of came up with based on Saloon from Sarsa's deity of like, and I looked up Saloon in the Pantheon and Saloon and is very much against like these, the different like goddess of night and goddess of the moon and everything like that. And kind of taking some inspiration of that, of like, what if Saloon as a goddess has a natural antagonist in Lolth, in this spider queen, who now goes by a different name. Mm-hmm. So
wait, who?
Well, let's run through just like really quick outline the different places we visited, because I feel like there's a lot of highlights and fun things that we'll come back to when we talk about favorite moments. So went to Shimmercross, met Cully, played by David Armstrong.
Shivermore, awesome. Yeah. Or sorry, Shimmercross was the.
I'm reading your map.
Yeah, sorry. I thought you said Shiver.
Velosia.
Yeah, Shimmercross in Velosia, which was the island.
So then we came back and we went to Coldguard, where we met Diedre's fiance and did icy drag racing, which was an incredible, awesome
so fun
change up with Victor von Schnell. Then we went to Heaven's Breath and we battled Bezos with Flint came along, Igneous's buddy.
You battled capitalism and you battled yourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty epic battle. Brought back Bezos, didn't keep him very long, which I think was a great introduction to Chris Reed, our other friend, playing Wander Dirtle. I think I mentioned this in a break of that episode, but I felt like, wow, that's the perfect situation to introduce a Tortle character. This situation where, like, we have this bad guy contained, but he's going to get out of this in 1 minute. Can you do anything about that?
Summon a spell.
Quickly, very quickly.
I've got this wand.
Later on, what can you do with the wand? Just do something.
How do you all feel about...
Yeah, that was awesome. Chris Reed was awesome.
That's great.
And so I told Chris, I was like, I think what I'd like to do is have you from this place that is one of the places. And that was the one that I was like kind of hoping that it would go in that direction. Because I'm going to have you like kind of mention that maybe this is where you could go. And luckily that's where y'all chose to go. Because the Zolar Spiral was with Old Tula, where I had lots of fun with rhyming and that drives you crazy. Several possibilities of rhymes of like, okay, if Melbin asks a question, if you ask a question, how do I relay this and how do I say this? And
Chris is in his office with a giant whiteboard covered in different rhymes.
Yarn connecting.
Old Tula's favorite color is orange. Door hinge.
Constitution save.
That's how you defeat her.
The other man came to inquire. Threatened me with eldritch fire. I said if he helped my tree friend, the forest darkness would then end.
Igneous is rolling his eyes up on the roof. So Old Tula fighting bugs, being small in the Zolar Spiral.
That was cool, being small.
Moving on, next was Boulder Bell.
Uh-huh.
Boulder Bell was where we met Coach.
Was very much
Like an
no.
amazing
Boulder
story.
Bell was going after XX Bloody Heart,
The coat rack.
and it was the Beauty and the Beast inspired mansion episode.
And the death of Melbin.
Taking the ideas of sentient objects, turning them into mimics, but also having a wizard who we find out the origin. He was this guy that was an old cultist who became a lich, and ended up being Rhodos. So I liked the idea of like pulling in stuff from Jeff's season, from season 4, and like bringing back a villain and be like, oh, and then like having a character that you had a relationship, but also finding out that XX was partially responsible for the fall of the infiltration of all the knights because they used him to get the tattoos.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Only he was sneakier.
He's very sneaky. Okay, wait, it's not.
He's very sneaky.
We don't need it.
It was a nice bit that like we had the list of knights, and XX Bloody Heart was on it, and as players we were like, and as characters we were like, that guy's what?
I'm not going after an assassin.
We'll do that last.
Yeah. But that was fun. That's where Melbin got disintegrated.
Rip.
In a very quick fight because Rhodos was hurt. You know, I didn't make him full HP. He was already kind of weak.
Yeah, I think we had more of the fight was trying to get the book away from Melbin than the actual fight with the lich.
And Drell pulls out a small pouch, and from it he pulls out a small platinum coin and flips it around in his hand. He says, I am also a member of the Platinum Syndicate.
Oh, now that's very interesting.
But
I'm sorry, the politics.
You're not keeping very
dull
good
for
company
me.
in that case.
what makes you think that I'm in it for personal gain? Sometimes you have to keep an eye on your enemies in order for you to get rid of them. Then you went back to...
That's just definitely like, so timeline of us recording this is like the edited episodes right now are right around that time. Melbin just got brought back. So like, at least I've listened to those parts now with the perspective of being through the season.
Yes.
And now I'm going through listening to be like, oh, that's where he was telling us that. Oh, that's where he was telling us. Oh, that was so obvious. I had no clue. None of us paid any attention to that. We're going back to that whole layer of listening to the scene as a listener, being mad at ourselves for missing clues all along the way.
Yeah, we're the worst players. Chris, you do such a good job of like
That's all right.
setting up and making sure that there's like delivery of all of this information throughout. But like, you know, I'll claim responsibility on my half of them. Just like, oh, okay, a name, all right.
This is the map.
Matt will write that down.
This is
Yeah.
the map
Someone will write it all down.
of the
Yeah.
Chateau de Beaugeron. This is the spider symbol that you saw. Like
Was the intention in that confrontation to kill someone in the party, or was that
No.
completely okay? So that completely just happened in the moment. Really, anything could have happened in that battle. Yeah. Okay.
You don't not fire a
I
disintegration
mean, if any-
beam at somebody if you have disintegrate.
he had disintegrate and he had finger of death. So
So he could have killed.
That's how
could
it
have
works.
killed anybody. And if
The
anything,
problem was the finger of death was his pinky,
Oh.
so he couldn't.
so we had nubbin of death. Yeah,
How many fingers did we cut off?
you've cut off several.
3.
I'm gonna go 2.
It's the
I
Star
haven't
Wars
cut off
hand
any.
cut off thing. Well, I mean, if anything, he probably would have recognized the three of you that had fought him before. So I was ready to be like, oh, I'm gonna go after these characters that killed me. But Melbin
It's a beast.
kill like knocked off 2/3 of his hit points, and he's like, this guy's a threat, as you often do.
Yeah.
So as a player, or as a villain, you know, I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna have to go after this guy.
I was thrilled about it. I was like, cool.
I mean, and that's, it doesn't make sense for me to like, well, that sucks, but let me go after this you know, thief that I fought a while ago in my body or something. So anyway, and then y'all went to the Sunless Jungle where you met.
Oh, that was so fun.
Where you met Coach.
Yes.
With the Groundhog
in a
Day.
loop.
Yes.
How many
I
times
feel like-
did you expect us to go through the loop?
Yeah, that
'Cause we
could have
went
been a
through, like,
very
twice.
long recorded session.
I not very many. I thought maybe two. Because I even had like, okay, the first time you went through, that happened, and then the second time, and like let's say you went through a couple of times, but it's more fun just to kind of.
I was kind of sad it didn't take us more loops because those were all very fun.
Full disclosure, we were about like 3 minutes from season 4 exclusively being a death loop campaign. The whole season. I'm not joking. I had it all planned out. We were like 3 minutes
I've
away,
been
and
in
then I
that
changed
campaign.
my
Don't.
mind. Okay. I'm happy with the decision.
doing it.
Jeff,
but
I
was
will
like,
absolutely play that.
ooh, I was so close.
We could play it, but not record it.
There you go.
But I
great having
honestly,
Wes back.
it was
Oh,
great
it's
having Weston
I'm so
back.
happy that this was the best thing. This was great.
I also just loved having because the NPC Bato was really fun just to have somebody that it wasn't like I had a whole like bad guy encounter, but he was the one that you were supposed to bring back, and Coach was the one that was sent after him. So it was great that y'all responded to that by going back in the timeline in the loop and finding him and talking to him before the sort of activation happened, because that was kind of like the thing. I was like, if you get to him before this point, then you can maybe talk him down, and there was high enough like persuasion rolls and stuff like that there wasn't a fight, and it was great. It was
I
like,
couldn't believe that the big the T-Rex monster.
oh yeah,
Like I was like, this is gonna be a big. Oh no, it's not.
and it's
This is not as big.
polymorph.
I was so
Done,
ready
baby.
to use that as a grenade. It's like the whole time. I'm like, I got this newt. I'm gonna throw it.
Yeah.
It's gonna turn it. It's gonna get hurt and turn back into a T-Rex.
Yeah.
We didn't need it.
Yeah.
I have to say, I really like that kind of like motivation. What's his name? Bato, you said?
Bato, yeah.
I really like the motivations for characters of like, I need to save this person that I care about. And like everything is driven by that. Because I totally get that. And it's very believable. And even like good characters can do bad things. And it's completely justified.
Well,
So that's
I think
great.
in our type of podcast where there's a lot of ridiculous stuff. I mean, I had bugbear cooking competition, so like what, I come up with a lot of ridiculous stuff, and so grounding some of that, not just throwing in drama for drama's sake, but you got to have like realistically grounded characters every once in a while. So having a dragonborn artificer that's like making a thing that he made some deal with a deity that contacted him, that's like, you can bring back your terminally ill husband. It's makes sense. It's something that people can relate to. So so thank you.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite side quest was that one.
Yeah.
For several reasons.
And Coach, some of that you don't think that can that would have that charisma is the one that kind of talked him down, which was great because he had a relatable death in the family.
Yep.
So that was also nice. Just great having Weston back.
That was probably one of the more emotional.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be pregnancy, but like I definitely like that night. I remember afterwards, I was just like, whoa, like I need a moment.
Yeah.
But it had been such a fun episode too, and then it was like, whoa, this week we took a turn here.
Yeah. Then it kind of went back to Glorn, where before the final episode, there was an ambush with Shadow Warriors, and Gustavo came back, and you found out Drake Bloodmoon was captured, and you all fought people in Glorn. It wasn't safe, and then you went to find Naris and Drell to kind of find out more information and maybe figure out like why. If Drake Bloodmoon was captured, and that ended up being the final battle of the season.
That was when we were supposed to start really like putting things together. I think of like, oh,
We
it's
didn't.
We were
these
supposed
guys.
to.
This is the
It was
problem.
a real struggle.
Just point me in a direction and I'll stab it.
Yeah.
We didn't have a book smart team here. We had a real lot of doers,
That's all right.
not a lot of thinkers.
I wasn't I was trying to make it simpler. in a lot of ways.
Dumbing it down for
No, not even dumbing it down. I was like, at first, Narcendrell was going to be very like, like a very super obvious bad guy. But then, as closer to when he made his debut, I changed it to like he. Every villain has a purpose, and they don't believe they're a bad guy. Like he honestly felt like he was doing a great job. He got himself into the Platinum Syndicate, seeing an opportunity for power, but also like I think if I take all these bad guys, these self-proclaimed elites out, then I can bring my form of justice, which is ritual sacrifice, to my god. I can, but in his mind, it's like, there's nothing wrong with this. Like I'm getting rid of bad people. It's just a way of proactively taking out problems in the world, and
the ends justify the means.
Yeah, and he's a high cleric, and I found that was kind of like an interesting, foil of like somebody that is supremely justified. And now, as y'all know, he was being catfished, and a lot of these people, a lot of these elites that you went around, were all being catfished by like all these gods, or like these different fake gods that like they were like, well, that person doesn't really exist, and I wanted him to be the one that you would have to go to find that information of like, none of these gods really exist except Lolth, and that's and so basically the real person behind it, who is Lady Arunye, if you put that together, is the one that has over time, over centuries, posed as different, these different gods, and promised people, like Tula, in the Feywild, or the Victor von Schnell, and gave them their power, or made them who they are, or banished them, or whatever, because she ultimately has a plan.
The moral of the story: don't get catfished.
Okay. The moments with Narcendrell were very well done. We did need somebody who was like more willing to like, hang on, let's reason this out. Let's have a moral discussion. We were kind of like, I don't know. It makes a good idea. It was well done. It felt legitimately
I was questioning.
There's a possibility.
I was like,
maybe this is good.
This isn't completely bogus right now. Like, it's questionable, but like, let's think this through.
Like, is he fooling us? Does he really believe this? But like, ultimately, he would be corrupted by it. Like, there was a lot of options that were like legitimate. Like, wow, I don't know what is, especially like wrapped up and kind of introduced through like, listen, we need you to bring Melbin back.
Yeah.
So we're gonna listen to this, and then you're kind of making sense in some ways, and we need to listen to it. Like, those were tough, interesting moments for sure.
Yeah, I liked that was his introduction of Raffaella was like, we shouldn't trust this guy, and you're like, well, we have to, because he's got to bring back our friend, and so now you got this like, well, you're kind of, thanks for that, but also, are you a bad guy? But I had this whole like impossibilities of where this could have gone, and if somebody had said, hey, all of your gods are fake, including yours, he might have been like, what? And let's go take, like, he might have said, I want to find out who's behind this. And then there might have been a confrontation of like, let's go after, or let's whatever. So it not necessarily, I didn't want to be like necessarily like he was the end boss of the season, but because it could have,
We didn't put that together, Chris.
And that's fine. Like I obviously prepared to do it the other way. And he is technically still alive. He was just knocked unconscious. He brought back his body, and
a few holes in his face.
And I like the moral, I guess the mirroring that we had of like, you guys had to make some sacrifice morally to bring Melbin back. Like you said, the ends justify the means. And his entire drive is, I'm going to do this good thing in a bad way. And so, yeah, when he posed that dilemma to you guys, you're already like on that slippery slope down towards like, well, we're already doing this one thing to do a good thing. It's not that unreasonable that you could have gone that way, or that we could have talked him towards our side. Mm-hmm. Like it totally was all a reasonable. There was a lot of reasonable ways that could have gone, and that's always really interesting to me.
Yeah. I liked playing in the gray and seeing where it could have gone.
And I think too, every one of our characters was like just a good soldier. Like, somebody says, "Hey, go do this thing." We're like, "Sure, we trust you. Yeah, we'll do it. No questions asked." And then when it's like, "Hey, now what should we do?" It's like, I don't know. Somebody usually tells us what to do, and like, so like in that way, I think a nice mirror that like even we had to like decide that not the knights aren't just something that we have to listen blindly to. We also have to like add the morality of each character into it, and then decide through a little bit if I'm going to dig into
Which is kind of like
that.
how we should all be active participants in democracy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a note somewhere on my phone, like at the bottom of one of my Melbin pages. That's like he has 2 oaths essentially. He's got the oaths to the knights, and he's got the oath to like
Nature, gods.
nature and plants and stuff. And if those ever come into conflict, I didn't know what he was gonna do. I'm like, which is more? I think he would have sided with the plant stuff, and would have that put him at odds with Theo? Would have been really interesting.
Stay tuned for season 6.
Devoted to Kishara. Melbin and Kishara in season 2 would be an interesting discussion. That was kind of her thing. Something I think was very like prevalent for Yenni and Diedre and Iggy in like making choices. Like it was powerful in the like, do you want this like enhanced tattoo thing? Which like should be a like, absolutely, yeah, great. But because they had been introduced through a dodgy recruitment process, and then sure enough, this whole thing is corrupt and you can't necessarily trust anybody. It's fine now, it's better, but like I feel like that's very baked into their experience of the knights that like I can't take this on face value. And so there was a lot of like,
I had fun
can
with
we
that.
back out of the tattue thing? Like what's that gonna do? Is there a contract?
Raphael
like, who are
mentioned,
you again?
y'all went through the orientation, right?
That was
wait,
a
what?
good discussion.
No, yeah, I definitely feel like we are a little more very hodgepodge.
But that's good. People like that. People like the scrappy underdogs and the people that didn't.
I would argue less underdoggy though, because I would say like compared to like Maya or Jarek or
That's true.
like you have these those are I think a little more oddball as far as like efficiency of like combat and like, whereas I feel like the three of us are more like, we are professionals, we are good at killing, we are good at fighting, we're just not very good at the moral quandary and like the rest of this part.
I would like simple.
Yes.
Where do I punch?
I would challenge any other DM group to do a one-on-one with our 5 characters at the same level. I think we'd win. I think we got a winning team. That's an open challenge.
Bring it
that
out
is
there.
an open challenge.
Send us a message. Hit us up on social media.
We will record it.
Unless you're very ranged based, in which case we're just
Oh
dead.
no! You start it at 500 feet on either side of a thing. No!
I got the jumpy staff. I can get there. Give me 2 turns. Well, let's go through some favorite moments from everybody. So we've kind of recapped the season. What stood out as some favorite moments for each of us?
You got to talk about the race.
The race was great.
That was great.
Choosing the animals.
Cold Guard, yeah.
Blood race.
Yeah, the blood race. It was very interesting gameplay wise, because I didn't exactly know what was going to end up happening. It still remained turn based in a way, but it still felt like a race. It was very odd because it's like how's the DM really going to convey the fact that we're like racing each other and that there's laps and that there's essentially movement, but we're kind of mounted, so technically the movement is our mounts, not ours. And and balance that with the fact that like we're also fighting while we're mounted up on these animals. And I thought it actually went really it was really interesting. It was really fun. A good sense of space of the track and using that space to like try and do some fun stuff, and eventually come out on top. I forget who won the race.
Diedre and fiance.
That's right.
We were about to, and like we started to play dirty with each other against each other.
You guys
and
were
then
jerks.
and then no.
Fine.
I just made you fly a little bit. No big
Yeah,
deal.
come on. It felt like a Mario Kart track too.
Yes.
There was like a part where you went into a tunnel and then like a little like jumps and stuff and little boosters.
I should have made it harder.
Yeah.
There was some stuff. I should have made more like elimination kind of stuff. But
I was imagining the track like almost like pod racing.
yeah,
That's what I call podcasting.
It did feel a little Phantom Menace-y in a good way. I mean, that was a compliment.
there was some physical limitations. There was people trying to
Just wish
take
you
y'all
could've
out.
Tried spinning because that's a good trick.
Yeah.
I know my thought with Iggy, like, and introducing the mounts, like, my only real coherent thought was, like, I don't want any part of that python. That looks scary. But I didn't really say anything out loud. And then I asked Yenni what you want to do. And she was like, Python, definitely Python.
Okay. Should have known, Iggy.
Yeah, and the bad guy in that one was really fun with Vic. Was just he was pretty laid back for a villain. Yeah, especially for a vampire. And then, Polka. Okay.
Yeah, what a way to end.
Use that boon.
one.
I definitely, in my mind, feel like they had, like, Tuesday polka nights for
It's a thing now.
all of the weeks until their inevitable slaughter.
All of the weeks, oh Lord.
Maybe it was
the
a
1
Tuesday
week.
when they came.
Oh. Everyone was distracted by their joy into...
Well, if you understand Victor von Schnell as a vampire, they might have got rid of his body, but they have to kill his body in the coffin in order for him to truly die.
I wondered about that, actually.
Can't just kill in order to kill a vampire. Look at vampire mechanics.
He's still out there.
He might still be out
He's
there.
still out there.
Everyone else
Polka
is
in his
totally
heart.
dead.
You have to bury them in soil from their home country and then put them in the coffin.
Yeah. Anyway, that was fun.
he's out there
I
with
liked doing
Soze.
that. I was a little nervous about the race mechanics, but I was like,
It
okay.
was fun.
It was great.
I think for me, we already talked about the whole coach and time
Yeah,
loop.
that was a
I
fun
loved that episode. Probably my two favorite things outside of those were Melbin's death. I was like, I don't know why, I was like super excited about that. I thought that was great. I was ready for him to just be dead. I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. I was like, I was just like a fly on the wall for the rest of that episode, and it was really interesting from my perspective, getting to just watch. I'm like, what? I don't know what's gonna happen. I have no control. That was fun. And then my personal favorite moment, I think, was probably Jeff's Deus Ex Pixie. I think, of just like, all right, everybody has been transformed. There are no bad guys left. We win.
I found that as I was looking through what you could summon and then what they could do, and when I saw that once per day a pixie could cast polymorph, and I was like, well, I can summon 8 of those, and it was like, I better. I hid it away, and I waited until a moment
It's like
of desperation.
two hit points, but they can all simultaneously cast polymorph. And I was just like, oh god.
Gotcha.
Well played, sir.
Yeah, and then I made an agreement. I wasn't gonna do them again.
Well,
Use
I was
only.
ready. Like I had
No.
I was like, okay,
Said I wasn't gonna-
here's this giant area effect. I'm gonna destroy all pixies.
This does
Thunderwave
3
immediately every time you summon.
But that was great. It was great.
Polymorph is an interesting spell because it seems really, really powerful, but like really you get the newt grenade out of it. Like it has used poorly, it has just as much of a chance of just like
It's a runaway spell.
When
Yeah.
we did the
Yeah.
polymorph on the T-Rex or whatever thing in the jungle, there was a moment of Coach being like, okay, now I'm going to stomp it.
No, no,
And
no,
I remember
no.
I was like, no!
That almost
So
failed gloriously.
Which is such a coach, and it was such a coach thing to do. Completely in line with his character.
So pure, but also
I wanted that to happen so bad.
And he wanted revenge because that was the one that kept hurting.
Yeah. He had
totally
been
made
eaten
sense.
several times. That was fun.
That the whole episode with Sozeb, like I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but that was a fun little arc, and yeah, just and like the kind of it's such a thin line, and I know we've talked about it several times about like when players kind of lose their agency, but I think with me as a player and within this group, like it's fun. I enjoy it. Like it lets me kind of okay. Well, I'm going to play against my own interests at this point, and like, yeah, that was a.
I liked getting you all in little mind interview rooms and just playing those out. Like that was just kind of fun moments for everybody to have those.
I just flashed back in our recap to the monsters that took our strength. Those are some like really dodgy moments of like, oh no.
That was the purifiers.
It's going to get real bad real fast.
And they were based on shadow, not shadow monks, but like it's something from, I kind of homebrewed a little bit, but it's like these shadow warriors that are from the Shadowfell, and they were actually Shatterkai, like the dark elves from the Shadowfell that have basically been conscripted into fighting for Narsendrel. They have this blade that's like, cut away your strength. And it's just like, yeah.
Which is a great way to, especially with this party.
Yeah.
Like a couple of our characters in particular.
Yes.
It's like, that was a great way of like instilling fear in the player. It's like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. We got to get out of this.
Yeah,
Jump in that pond.
I believe Yenni was the first one hit, and as soon as I took that strength, I think it was like 3 strength drained. There were so many expletives going through my head. I was so mad. I was like, I hate this. No.
And we didn't know if we were going to get them back or how until after that fight.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
okay.
And
Okay.
it's like it just taking 1 or 2 more hits. It just means that I basically will not be able to do anything. So it's just like, oh no, we gotta end this soon. And there were like 6 of them or something, right? Like it was
were
quite
swarming.
a few. Yeah.
Yeah, at some point thematically, there's like, at what point is a character like crushed under the weight of their own bows because they have like 2 strength? But that was one of our least favorite moments. Let's go back to favorite moments.
Yeah. But to that note, and just thinking about Yenni, I actually kind of was anticipating the blood axe to somehow turn on you or like turn evil. Like I kept waiting. I was like, this is gonna go too far. But amazingly enough, it was
So far, so good.
It went the other direction.
I want the
and
blood
we
axe.
super bonded.
And what's Joe? Is that the? I want them
Shavandriel?
I want them to hang out.
Yeah.
I just
Like
think
an
they'd be
odd
friends.
couple kind of scenario. Yeah.
One shot.
like you did. Can we just do a full episode that like Yenni and Jarek like go to a tavern and this is them in the weapons closet like having beer.
It's like Toy Story. Like a Toy Story short.
It's a bubble episode where they share their past history, their past wielders, and
Flashbacks.
one time,
flashbacks,
one time when I was back in Shimmercross, oh man, you should have seen it. It was so much blood.
All right, writes itself.
I'm personally proud of all the different animals. I think each time I summoned something, it was a different number.
Didn't summon the same
I didn't
animals
summon the
twice.
same thing.
Yeah, it was great.
And trying to give all of them names.
We had baboons.
We had the baboons.
We had moose. We had pixies. We had wolves.
Pixie,
bears,
Nixie,
some
Trixie,
bears.
Pixie.
Yeah, and Steve. Yeah.
Yeah. What was in the last
I
battle?
did a couple of dryads and they stunk. They like,
Oh yeah,
There's a giant eagle, very helpful in Shimmercross.
giant eagle.
Joan Jett.
Yeah.
The eagle.
The Beatles.
Joan Jett.
There was
Did you
the
just have one
Ringo
beetle
the
and you
Beetle.
had a beetle? and I
Well, we
had a beetle?
Beatles.
Summoned a beetle.
The Beatles. Hey, don't see anything over here.
I enjoyed that because I was just like, as a joke, did the voice. You're like, oh, are you guys doing that? Yep, now we're doing that.
All right, so, okay. Well, I'll check the upstairs, I guess.
That's great. I think I summoned a weasel at some point to go skimmering around. Yeah, it was fun.
Oh,
got
in
to
the,
summon
in the
some
haunted
animals.
house, the weasel
Yeah.
was out there. You made him report back. Yeah. And Chris had to do the voice. Grudgingly.
And what do they sound like?
Come on, go with it. We know you can do it.
It's my favorite part of each episode was, what can I make Chris Dealey do a voice of, characterize?
Yeah.
Getting the magical handshake was a nice moment that was thrown out there.
Oh,
Iggy
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Lucky.
Icy hot.
the icy hot
Fisting.
moment.
That was great.
You know that gif of the two pandas that like do the big, they touch the
Oh yeah, the DBZ sort of like fusion thing. Yep.
That's what I imagined.
It was a nice like moment of like, given Igneous's kind of like loneliness arc and looking for something, this notion of like, oh, this person who I have not like really interacted with that much might be kind of a distant brother. It was the like, given what he was going through emotionally, I think this like we are going to physically connect and share and exchange something was, I think, really powerful, and it also gave an awesome icy hands. So rad. Thanks for that.
The fanfic is already
Oh yeah. It's if there hasn't been any fanfic written for
I'm already
this
300
podcast
pages
yet,
into it.
Yeah, then this guarantees
deviant
it.
That was
account
completely
has been
on the
created.
spot. I didn't plan on that happening. It was just like, ooh, wait a minute. What if something is just like, hold on, it's just in my mind, like, this is gonna be a thing.
Glistening.
Testosterone.
There's a little bit of sexual tension to it too.
A little bit.
Then they played volleyball and
Oh, if only we had a volleyball scene this season.
guys,
Again.
gonna set up the net.
So the fanfic,
ball.
right? Like, okay.
Put it on the list.
it's actually just made out of pasta, but I couldn't find any string.
When Chris says that was on the spot, like it did come from old Tula as a prophecy that rhymed giving out different people's boons. So like Chris's version of on the spot, I feel like becomes very nuanced and deep very quickly. Like he put together like, I'll do this, and let me sketch down a real quick rhyme and we'll make this. And of course, Lucky and Iggy can come together and like, well done. It felt like it was meant to be.
Obnoxiously organized.
Did everybody's prophecy from Tula come true?
I don't
What
remember
was
what
my
mine
prophecy?
was.
I don't remember.
I think it did, but I
Oh,
can't.
did you write down the
That
prophecy?
episode hasn't come out yet for us, Chris, so we have no idea.
I don't have my.
Well, this episode.
Do you all
hasn't come out
remember?
yet.
I remember mine. I don't think it came true.
Lose before the end, but prove I am a paladin.
A soldier from the fire plane embrace the winter and the pain. Your elemental
yeah.
opposite will give your punch a greater hit.
Yeah.
Just off the top of its head.
No. So what I meant by that was it was a I think if they go back,
That would
then
be cool,
then
yeah.
that's what it's going to be.
Makes sense.
Mine was the ring, which was great.
Mine was the axe thing, which actually did happen. Yeah.
No, I'd already died. I think technically her prophecy was a retroactive one for me. Because I had, in fact, died.
You, Sir Orc, here's what I find. To save your allies in a bind, the answer is you. So don't think twice. You'll need to make a sacrifice.
Didn't have to. No worries, baby.
Maybe
It's all great.
They haven't
maybe
all
your proposal
come
would
true.
have gone through.
Haven't all come true.
That's what it was. No, Raphael.
Speaking of which, recapping, I just realized some of my favorite roleplay moments were playing Wingman for Theo and
good.
Raphael.
A real duo.
You know, he makes cheese. This is a really cool guy.
Gotta build them up.
It's going to happen.
You know, you did it to me once. Not again.
Chris's most uncomfortable moments twice.
Wait, when was the first time?
Gravely and his former colleague
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't
in season 3.
I wasn't in those
That's so
episodes,
good,
but I
though.
listened to them after the fact. I'd forgotten about that.
No, it was and that was fine, and I'm fine with it, and I'm fine.
Love my characters, Chris. Love
I
them.
just you know,
I need you to love them.
I was just like,
Need more romance in these.
I feel like Rafaela, like she should have figured it out
She deserves more. She needs to open herself up to love.
because I feel like she kind of strung him along.
she's very
damn.
I don't think she feels that she deserves Theo. I think she doesn't have enough self-confidence, and that like once she looks inside of herself, she'll realize that she does deserve that.
I'm taking over, you guys. I got it. Don't worry. I'm making notes.
I think she wanted to
Add
have her
it to the
cake and eat
fanfic.
it too, and like wanted to be wanted, but didn't want to actually follow through with the relationship, but didn't have the constitution to.
We have so much more analysis of Theophila than we do of all the other plot points in the whole season.
Didn't take notes on anything else but this. Oh yeah, we knew everything.
Other
To
favorite
be
moments.
fair, I did intentionally make it awkward and strong because I was like,
it was too much.
yeah, like, but that's how I wanted. The
Hey, we haven't been
character
on a date.
To be
Let's get married.
Yeah, that's to Theo. That makes sense.
I'm gonna
He
make
did
a
go
ring.
from 0 to
Yeah.
100.
And how much
Yeah.
did you spend on the ring
all of it. He is poor.
It was like
He is
5,000.
broke.
that you didn't even use?
like-
Nope.
Then you made
It was
your
like
own ring.
it was like
Yep.
over 5,000 gold. I
Yes.
think.
Jeez.
He is in debt to whoever that person is. If he ever goes back, they're gonna run him out of town.
Oh yeah, there's a
Oh no.
But you can't go back for at least 90 days, so you're good.
well by
By
teleportation.
teleportation, yeah.
Anyway,
That was a favorite.
favorite moments.
That was a favorite.
I think my favorite moment was probably the PvP fight. That was interesting to see how that just happened, because I didn't know how it was going to end, obviously, and I didn't know who would be corrupted or not. And it was interesting that Flint was on the good side. It was just like, okay. And then like you went down at one point, and then the pixie thing was great, because I had this whole like, okay, well, if everybody gets defeated, that's good. Then like we're gonna have to have like everybody's captured and something. I was just like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. My ultimate goal this season was like, don't like have a lot of possibilities, but don't like have a plot. Don't have a plot of this needs to happen. There could be things that happen, and hopefully that came to fruition.
I forgot that fight was the pixie fight.
Yeah.
Wonderful Igneous moment was like there was like a wall of fire or something. Igneous and Flint were just like traditionally fighting each other, and the wall of fire went down.
And everyone
it
was
like,
animals.
there's a hedgehog and there's a raccoon, and
And
what
they
in the
were all
world were you
chubby.
doing over here?
All fat hedgehogs.
But we had there's some great moments just overall in the season that was really fun. Like I liked when you talked to the giant crocodile, and instead of a fight, which again could have happened, and I had stats for a giant crocodile and everything. Like, but you were like, "Hey, what? I'm Stumpy," or something like. Stumpy. You're like, you took a ride on Stumpy to the other side.
Yep.
And I had a fight planned for Tula, and her two trolls.
Oh, were they trolls?
Yeah.
Oh, I had them down as ogres in my notes.
Or ogres. Yeah, two ogres, and like all the stuff that she was ready to do, and if you didn't clear out the infestation, and just like y'all did a great job of just of finding little ways of getting around certain things, and I think it kind of speaks to like you don't always have to have a fight.
Well, when you asked me what I wanted out of this season, that was more or less what I said. Was like I wanted to find more non-combat solutions to things. So that was fun. So like Diedre getting to unlock doors. Like
Yeah.
we don't, that's like a staple, like a trope of D&D. But how often do we actually do it?
The puzzle in that Shimmercross thing where it was the four faces and y'all trying to figure that out was really fun. It was like, wait a minute, I'm gonna stick my tongue out right in front of him. I'm like, okay, and like I'm gonna look where that statue's looking, and it's like that was kind of fun, and like answering the riddles was a fun bit. I just liked everybody trying to figure those out.
Yeah, I enjoy those
riddle.
kind of things a lot.
What am I?
Boots.
Okay. Sorry,
No,
that riddle did not.
I liked that ended up that way. That was way more fun than if it had just been like, oh yeah, it's fish because male. And oh, it doesn't have hinges. That's an egg. Yeah, or whatever the Hobbit riddles are.
And
I liked having all of our guest stars. Thank you again to Chris Reed and Weston Gardner and David Armstrong for coming in, and for your dad for doing a little guest audio recording. That was great. I wanted to bring him in
I'm
some
uncomfortable
capacity.
as Jarek and as Zach.
I was thinking about bringing him in, but it just never happened for like the final episode.
Next season.
I liked being able to visit more of the world in sort of a non-linear way. So I think that was kind of fun. Just the Adventure Hub is a great sort of season or campaign kind of thing that you can do as a DM.
It was really great having so many different backdrops, like one after the other, and like it was kind of nice having it feel a little bit more episodic just as a player, to like, because I'm not always great about retaining the long linear story, but it was like, okay, here are the things that I remember, and we're going to this new place and it's going to be new stuff, and I can just be present, and that's enough. And I really enjoyed that. Yeah, that was fun. It was fun for me too, but I was also like trying to figure out the overall, like, well, this is all got to come together at some point, and I've got to drop some. So the idea of there being gods, but they're not really gods, and it's actually one god or higher being that's like playing everybody. You know, I was hoping that would sort of be the thing that tied everything together, and having the big bad of the season, Drell, kind of being like an expert on gods, and like, so I was like, okay, if they can figure that out, or at least get pushed into the situation where they have to talk about it, then that could be something. I didn't want it to be like religious, but it's just that's what he was good at. Like that's what his sort of wheelhouse was, and whether he became ultimately an unlikely ally, or you had to find out, like, from him, which ultimately what happened is you find out like he was kind of in league with the Platinum Syndicate, but in a different motivation. But then there's definitely something like with the Platinum Syndicate, like who's playing all the Platinum Syndicate members against each other. And with the little epilogue at the end, which was delightful, which was fun, kind of to have those moments. And with Maya scrying with the Luminite that Bato made, and like kind of having all those things come together in that little scene, just like the one take camera, going through all the rooms and everything, and like having that follow of like showing the sort of like teeing this up right for Zach for the next season or for the next two seasons is just like, here I wanted to very much establish like, okay, here's our ultimate villain. Of not just wait till the very end of like, oh, it's them. And we kind of talked about at the beginning of the season of like, there's a couple possibilities, and I'm like, I think I'm gonna set something up just so as a campaign overall arc, like we know who our ultimate villain is, and now she can have some fun. We may have to fight a couple of like underlings and henchmen and generals and lieutenants and stuff like that. I mean, now we're getting to like the final elites that are left. It's the final countdown.
And what does that mean?
How many are left?
It's not like Fortnite where you get the countdown.
Yeah,
How many players are left?
The epilogue, I think, was just like, it was delightful to just like the way you described it, the way you did it was really fun. Just like, and remember this character, and here's this character doing the thing that character did, and there's Tyrone, and like it was very much. It was it was exciting for me being like, oh yeah, those characters are out there, and like yeah, we should be able to do that.
It does feel like we have like a Fast and the Furious style world where it's just like, I don't know, they're off doing something. Whoever we get back for the next movie, we'll find some way to like bring them in and have them do something stupid. Interact with another character.
2 dungeons, 2 dragons.
We should. I feel like there's got to be some sort of fans vote this particular team lineup. Like they did that with X-Men in the X-Men comics. Like you get to vote the last member, of the team. Like who's it going to be? That sort of thing.
Also, I wanted to reference another favorite moment. Came together very nicely. the very end of the season was Iggy's kill shot with Narsendrell jumping down with the bag of darts.
Yes.
Very epic.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, what an ending to that fight.
Oh, I forgot about that.
so good.
That was easily one of my favorite moments.
And Iggy did like nothing else. The rest of the fight with Narsendrell was like behind the barrier. He like one of his turns was punching down the barrier. One of his turns was taking out the assassin person or whatever. So
I like
it was
that
a fun
three of you
strategy.
separately went to the barrier and was like, I'm going to get.
Why you didn't just walk around to the open side?
I will say I messed up the barrier mechanic because what it was originally supposed to happen, it was like a 3-layer barrier. And so like when you took out one of the things, like one of the barriers was going to go down, but you would still have all of them
That
around.
would've made-
And I don't know why in my head I was like, well, that side went away. It's like, now I can't bring it back.
Yeah,
and I was like,
And it was Melbin's side. So
yeah,
just gonna, like, beat
So
the
then
hell
he
out of
just,
you.
and that's why I tried to flame strike you, but it didn't work. So I was just like,
Was there anything we did that like completely caught you off guard? Like you were like, oh, well, clearly this is gonna happen, and this character's gonna have to die, or whatever. And we were just like,
I mean, the Pixies. That was one thing. The summoning of. I mean, this was just kind of funny, but like when y'all got to Shimmercross and it was like, okay, anytime a spell is caused, it's going to be wild magic, and it was just like, how about
So
this?
fun.
Does this work? Oh, is it birds? And I'm just like, oh gosh, like.
To be fair,
That
like
was
we
pretty
had
funny.
had the bird fly over.
Yeah.
And so like I think
Yeah,
we
yeah.
just had birds on the brain. And like the obvious
That was
solution
just so
of like,
funny.
oh, it's spells.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of the fun of wild magic. I thought that was great with the time loop thing. You know, just when y'all, I was like, I'm curious to see how you wrap it up, and just having it, like I mentioned before, like just having it be like a one with the polymorphing the T-Rex was great. As much as I was like, we'll have a T-Rex fight, but also we have a T-Rex fight, but also that not happening made room for some nice role play, which was great as well. So it's always a pleasant surprise. Not to sound too cliche, but I was very proud of y'all for doing a lot of different.
Well, and I think as a player,
different
it's
stuff.
always nice to know that like it doesn't always have to be
Yeah.
combat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because that
And it
allows
was-
you to really play with the mechanics and like using those spells that are there.
It was
Your other skills.
yeah.
it makes the characters more interesting too, instead of just being mindless
Murder hobos.
Yes, that.
Yeah, and I tried to, like Matt said, like have a couple of opportunities where it wasn't just, massive combat. It was, they have a couple of skill challenges. Like the blood race was essentially like a big skill challenge, and we didn't have any cooking competitions, but we did have, different silly scenarios like the cheese thing and the Boone going through different random stuff and like when you guys got to come up with where your rooms would what your rooms would be in Glorn and just like interesting little things like that. I like those moments. Meeting Yenni's parents or the moments with Flint are always kind of fun. The conversations with Xavier and Diedre, just like having that and then finding out he's like secretly in love with your brother back home, and just like I was like channeling Bridgerton, like
Oh yeah.
it was like
I was glad too because I was like, one of my goals for Diedre was like I didn't want her to. For as much as I wanted Theo to like have a romantic interest, I was like so not interested in that for Diedre. I was like, she's got enough other stuff going on. Like that's what she was walking away from.
yeah.
So like it was fun though to kind of get to play through that dynamic and stuff. And
It's like here's an awkward situation.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
well, and then like I don't know how palpable it was, but the relief when it was like, oh, you're not hitting on me.
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
Yeah, that was fun. It's very exciting. I'm proud of what we've done.
And
leading
great
up to this
job,
point.
Chris.
Yay!
Very much.
It was very fun to be a part of, and I think a very colorful and like just a nice variety of episodes and adventures, and like I feel like we all kind of got our moments, and I know sometimes as a DM that's not easy to do. So I just want to call out you and how wonderful you were this season. But don't let it go to your head.
Thanks.
Yeah, stay humble.
Yeah.
Excellent work.
All right, and I think that's about all we have to say about that. So, thank you all for listening. As always, thank you all for the players. Thank you, Chris, of course, for DMing, and again, thank you all out there in the world for sharing and spreading the word. So you know what? Remember, go out and make life an adventure.
Chap.